Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Political Nerd. Like as promised, we're back this week, and you know what? Got a great guest tonight from the Patriot TV, Patriot.tv. Got to be careful how I say that. And I told everybody at home that we're gonna start bringing these guys on because, look, I like to be political and I like to bitch about stuff and argue about stuff and the whole nine yards. But when it comes down to it, these guys that I'm bringing on are super deep. I mean, they know things that I don't know, nor do I probably want to go and find out because it's kind of scary. But, it's good to have people on that really do know what they're talking about. So I'm going to bring on Mike Lauber, and he has a show on Patriot, right? And it's I think it's the Insurrection. Am I correct?
It is the Insurrection.
Yeah. So there we go. And you actually also work with Ani, who is kind of like our handler in a way. I feel bad for her, but
she wears a lot of hats.
Boy,
she's very capable.
Does. Yeah. So now you've been on there. You've also been on a couple other networks. But this is my biggest question. Normally I save it till the end, but I'm going to get it in the beginning, is what made you go, I'm going to come from behind the camera, because you are a producer, and go, I want to do my own show. I'm going to be my own dude.
Well, it actually started kind of before that. I'd known Annie for a while. She's my best friend, and I had helped her out a few times with projects that she was working on. I guess let me wind back even a little further. I had a long career in the staffing industry for a long time, especially during COVID. A lot of things started to change, and eventually I kind of got to the point where I felt like I had the capability to come forward and leave the career behind. I don't have a lot of bills or other responsibilities. It's just me and the dog. So I'd worked with Annie on some side projects several times. I'd helped her put this wonderful memorial together for the 20th anniversary of 9/11. And I'd helped out a few times with where they just needed hands at Lindell TV before I worked there. And kind of eventually I decided, I'm going to step away from the career I've had in staffing. That's just kind of gotten to be old news. I didn't like a lot of the changes that we were seeing during COVID, especially high turnover, watching as the company I worked for was kind of behind the eight ball in certain things, as some of our clients were starting to replace people with robots because turnover being so high and a number of other things. It was just getting extremely frustrating. I was a lot more passionate about saving our country and getting us back on better footing. So her and I started working together more. I came over. I did all the clips for a lot of people at Lindell TV, from Mike Lindell himself to Roger Stone, Brandon House, Steve Bannon, Emerald Robinson. So I just cut clips for social media for a lot of their mainline programs and a lot of their secondary stuff as well. Eventually, then I started a podcast, and then Annie and I and a person I used to co-host with there decided to film a different show called Let's Be Frank. And that was actually her calling me right there. So let me make sure I muted that. Yeah. So that ended up getting picked up by Lindell TV. We ran that for a while. And one of the guests that we had on right before he went to prison for January 6th was Derek Evans.
Oh, wow.
We stayed in touch with him and with his wife for the 90 days that he was in jail. When a few days after he got out, I reached out to him and said, hey, I got an idea for a podcast I want to put together. You've got the right personality. If it's something you'd be interested in, let's get that going. So originally the show wasn't called The Insurrection. Originally we called it the Fiery but Mostly Peaceful Podcast.
That's awesome.
Then we decided to change the name to The Insurrection, just to kind of put a thumb in the eye of all these, lunatic leftists that were going after the J6 defendants and everything else. And we wanted to really focus on other J6 defendants, get their stories forward, and a lot of these whistleblowers that came forward. So, our first guests were actually Steve Friend and Kyle Seraphin. I'm fortunate enough now to actually produce Steve Friend's show for Patriot TV. True Blue. So that's been an honor and a pleasure to work with Steve full time over here. Yeah, that's really it. Like, I felt like I have the capability to step up, get something done. And I could learn a lot of this on the go. So I self-taught myself to edit in Adobe. I taught myself how to run Wirecast, and a lot of help from Annie, obviously learning the ins and outs there. And well, I guess here I am now with, we finally took the insurrection to 5 nights a week on election week. And well, we'll see where it takes us from there.
Oh, so are you doing dailies?
Yeah, we are doing a daily show. As of right now, we're only on Patriot TV twice a week, but we're on all our other channels streaming 5 nights a week. There probably is going to be a shift there pretty soon too, though. So we'll just keep everybody guessing.
It's a lot of work, bro. People have no idea what goes on behind, they really don't.
Yeah, well, one of the kind of advantages, producing other shows like America's Mom and True Blue and the Liberty Port for Alex Newman, that helps me get access to a lot of other people and a lot of other guests and a lot of other thinkers. So, let's say Alex has a really good guest on one week. I might email him back afterward and say, hey, could you put me in touch with so-and-so? We'd really like to have this person on the insurrection. So that kind of helps open those avenues. And I've tried to always connect people. If somebody's on our show or somewhere else, and I think they've got a good story to tell that people need to hear, I'll send their information to everybody else I know that's in this industry and kind of advocate for them to cover this. Because again, I think that's really the important thing, is building up this alternative media right now. The dinosaur media, I think this last election cycle, they were down 26% in ratings. And we saw afterwards, It's just total collapse at MSNBC and CNN, where rumor has it, MSNBC is going to be up for sale. And that's been the rumor for everybody. Everybody's known that CNN is beyond broke, just hemorrhaging cash for months now. It looks like they're about to do 600 layoffs, and rumor has it also be sold off. It'd be great if Elon Musk bought one of those too. I hear Jack Posobiec is trying to put together a group to buy MSNBC right now, so we'll see what happens.
Really? That's,
yes.
I was like, MSNBC's been dying for, 3 years now, 2 years. I mean, really bad.
Yeah, they sort of had a bounce back after Biden was installed as president. All of a sudden, they had a captive audience of blue-haired moonbats again that needed to be fed the state propaganda. So they had that was kind of their saving grace there for a little while.
Right.
And I'm sure a lot of them are licking their chops right now that Trump's been reelected, because, again, all those blue-haired moonbats are going to need somewhere to get their disinformation when they emerge from their cry closets.
Right. So Ani and I were talking, and I used to call her Annie, but now I was told it's Ani. So now it's Ani. We were talking about a month ago, and I've been in the TV world for almost 40 years, so audio video world somehow. And
sure.
I always seem to think that, all the right talk shows, once a Republican gets in, then they have content for 4 years. Same thing with the left. When the left gets in, they have talking points. And Ani asked me, she goes, well, who do you think is going to win? I said, well, I'm pretty sure Trump's going to win. But if Trump wins, everybody on the right, like all of us for Patriot and the other people that I work with at, some of the shows, they're going to run out of content. Then what are they going to talk about? There's just nobody you can only praise a guy for so many episodes before everybody goes like, okay, we know Trump's doing well. Big deal. Right?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I think there's always plenty of content, plenty of things to discuss no matter who's in office, because it's wins and losses and sabotage. It's everything that's going on. And we are actually going to kind of shift gears with the insurrection now that Trump has won re-election. Right. We've successfully taken the Senate. We're going to hold the House by a hair. So now our job should be to help move that agenda forward, to help alert people, educate people, and then also discuss, what do we really want to see? I want to get the Republicans off being on the defensive constantly.
Right.
I'm sick and tired of allowing the left to always push the agenda, and instead we're the ones just saying, hey, put the brakes on. We don't want to go full communist yet. Basically, like, it feels like both parties are taking us to the same destinations, but Democrats are taking us there in a Ferrari, and the Republicans are on, pedaling their way down the highway on a bicycle. But either way, we're headed to the same place. So we need to change that. We need to start pushing our agenda items out first. We also need to start kneecapping the left, the deep state, the uniparty, these globalists, whatever you want to call them, so they can't implement items on their agenda. The example I keep using right now is, their whole Agenda 2030. A big part of that is to have 30% of land in the U.S. controlled by the federal government or their sycophants, and not allow use of it by private individuals. Then by 2050, 50% of land use. Right. So what if we put out policy to eliminate that even as a possibility? Yep. Let's say Trump goes in and says, hey, we need to release all this federal land, or the majority of the federal land we're holding in most states, aside from, federal parks, military bases, and a few other things that we should retain property as the federal government within state boundaries. The rest of that should go back to the states, but release it on the condition that it's also put up on the market for sale. This would help with our housing crisis. This would help people buy cheap land, build something where their family can truly build wealth, generational wealth, as new towns, new cities are developed, and people that just want to be isolated out in the middle of nowhere and build a cabin and live off in the woods can do that too. But it's a way to handicap them and take this card off the table before they can even do anything with it.
Right. Great idea. So you guys get to talk about politics. I talk about nerdy stuff, So we've always said that the reason that the drone laws came out, that you can't fly over federal property like states and parks, is so people can't go to the Grand Canyon and really see what's out there, down there, if you know what I'm saying. Yeah. But that's a different story. But, I think this year and this next 4 years, I think the right side, our side, well, I'm an independent. I'm not a Republican, nor am I I can't even say the word, the Democrats. But I think this right here, our year, is just to make sure, it's kind of like you said, is kind of keep them at their word. This is what they said they were going to do. This is how they said they were going to do it. So we're the ones going to be sitting there going, hey, look, that's not what you said. Or, hey, look, they're doing what they're supposed to do. Maybe we don't like the way they do it, but, it's got someone's got to keep them true.
Yeah. Well, I think beyond that, it's also being a check basically on our media. Most journalists right now are really just Democrat deep state operatives masquerading as journalists. You look at the number of lies, or even just the coverage ratio from the last election, where roughly 80% of the coverage for Trump was negative. Roughly 90% of the coverage for Kamala was positive. Right. So they very clearly have an agenda, and again, this is reflective with the decrease in their audience. People want the truth. They want other perspectives. And that's why you have this growing entity of podcasters and alternative news outlets like Patriot TV or the Daily Wire or Lindell TV or the Blaze. These are growing at like near exponential rates right now because so many people are just sick of the media. This act is very transparent. Anybody with two brain cells to rub together sees right through what's happening right now. But this also allows us to counterbalance their message when they are lying, or essentially lying by ignoring, lying by omission. It allows us to highlight things. It also allows us to alert the public when there are things that the rhinos are doing to sabotage President Trump or sabotage our interests, and instead to keep the agenda of the military, industrial, social media, medical complex rolling forward full steam. Right. So we need independent journalists.
So I had an idea, and I was watching. I was watching a video. I think it was on, actually, of all places, TikTok. They were talking about Barron, right, and his influence on his dad about doing a podcast, right. So my idea said that some of us at Patriot, somebody like someone that's close to Mr. Trump, or President Trump, and we need to talk to Barron and say there needs to be a full-time podcast crew that everywhere President Trump goes, we go. And I'll say
Yeah.
we because I want to sign up for that. We travel everywhere he goes. We do a podcast, either daily or bi-weekly or weekly. And then, dude, that kid, in my opinion, that keeps him up there. Everybody's informed and educated, other than stuff that we're not supposed to know, which is okay. I'm okay with not knowing everything. I'm really good with not knowing everything. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah.
Like Mr. CIA leaker guy there that, let out the Jewish, that whole Israeli thing. That dude right there needs to be hung. I want to go back to when you commit treason, guess what the penalty is for that? Bring
True
that
penalty
crap
for
back.
treason is death.
That's right.
Yep.
Bring it back. Because I'll tell you what, if I get burned on a stove, I'm not touching that stove anymore unless I know it's off. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
So there's no deterrence anymore. But yeah, so anyway, I think it's a great idea that he has a full-time podcasting team with him at all times.
Yeah, I agree. And I think they ought to rotate who's on and off that, maybe pick a few per week, have them follow them around everywhere, cover the story, get a couple, even just quick interviews with President Trump, members of his cabinet, members of, different appointees. But yeah, allow that message to get out from the inside. I'd also like to see some of them added, at least like some of the bigger entities like Daily Wire and some of those added to the general press pool at the White House so they can start asking some questions instead of it being, again, just a gaggle of communists that are there to, cast anything that's done in a negative perspective. It'd be nice to get some people in that actually care about the truth and will ask good questions. I wouldn't mind if the media was openly hostile to both parties. I think that would actually be a good thing. But they are only openly hostile to conservatives, and Republicans when it suits them. They will ease off on Lindsey Graham amnesty and some of their other allies, but they certainly don't want a real conservative agenda moving forward. But yes, I think Barron's a genius, especially if he is the one that really told Trump to do all these podcasts. Yeah,
according to the news story, he became a huge influence on his dad.
Good.
And I think that's something that's been needed. I just personally think you and I, maybe we should talk to General Flynn and say, hey, put in a word for us.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think that'd be a good idea.
I got the technology. We can go anywhere. I literally have two cases. That's all we have to have.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, I've got a go bag over here for some of the work I do outside of my area. But yeah, it'd be a very simple thing to do. You could literally send somebody there with just a camera, a portable microphone, and a box to record everything on. And just that's really all you need.
Yep.
But just having, again, bypassing the media and being able to get things out there unfiltered, I think that's a big part of why he won. He skipped their propaganda arm when he'd go on with Joe Rogan or whoever, Aiden Ross, and he gets exposed to a new audience without having our dinosaur media be able to go in and tell people what to think about what he said, or just to straight up put words in his mouth like they do a lot of the time, or pretend he's lying without naming the lie. One of my favorite things they do. But yes, I think he needs to take advantage of this. Right now, we're in the middle of a huge change in how Americans consume their news and information. So he might as well be at the forefront of that, especially again with an ally like Elon Musk, who I'm very excited to see what the Department of Government Efficiency does with Elon and Vivek Ramaswamy.
Yep.
Yes.
Things
are headed in the right direction.
Yeah, absolutely. So since we're on that, you kind of just led us right into that world, right? So what do you think about his appointments so far?
So far, I really don't have any complaints.
Right.
Maybe Kristi Noem. I'm not the biggest fan of her. I think she gets better press than she deserves for a number of different reasons. Let's remember, she actually wanted to lock her state down during COVID. It was the state government that prevented her from doing that. There's kind of a number of other things she's kind of assumed credit for that she was against initially. That being said, people do learn lessons too. She's the only one I'm not like thrilled about. I think most of the rest of the people that Trump's put in place, you can tell by the reaction of the media that these are fantastic choices.
Yep.
You know, the fact that they're all apoplectic right now about Pete Hegseth.
Dude, he's my favorite. As much as I like Elon, as much as I like Vivek, I love Pete. I think you couldn't get a better person in there.
Oh, I agree. I think he's perfect for the job. I'd have to say my personal favorite so far is probably Tom Homan for Border Czar.
Yeah.
This guy is no nonsense, doesn't mess around. I've been fortunate enough to be able to meet him a few times at some events up in Chicago. That Annie and I's mutual friend, Terry Newsom, he's been instrumental in reporting a lot of the invasion and the results of that with Tren de la Agua up in Chicago. And I've been fortunate enough to meet Tom at a couple of his events. And this guy's no nonsense. He means business. He's there to save America and to rid us of the 20 to 30 million illegals that are here in our country now. And I don't live that far from Springfield, Ohio.
Right.
I mean, I saw firsthand just how bad it is when I went up there with Ben Berkwam a couple weeks ago. It's nuts.
I think the best thing I've ever heard him say, well, he has said a lot, but one of the best things is when he was being interviewed and the lady goes, well, how do you plan on, or are you really serious about sending these people back and ripping them away from the kids? How can you do that? And then he goes, well, no, just send them all back.
Yeah, they could be deported together.
Every one of them, they can all go back. It's not a problem. And she was speechless.
Yeah, well, because they don't expect people to say that, or you know, and as he explained, and I don't remember if it was that same interview or if this was in one of the hearings he was at in, I think, the House, when AOC was trying to drill into him about that. You know, but like he said, you know, if you pulled somebody over for a DUI and their son happened to be with them, of course you'd separate them. Same with, it was domestic abuse. Of course you'd separate the adults from the children if there was a domestic abuse situation. It only makes sense, but. Again, they just want to play sympathy. They want to go find the poor immigrant that's been, you know, working to keep her mother on life support and pay for the dog's cancer drugs and all the other just tear at your heart, whatever.
Right.
But it's nonsense. And at the end of the day, we've got to look out for our own people first. If we don't have common language, borders, and culture and get that back together, we will not have a country in another 4 years.
That is correct.
So this invasion needs to be solved. Let's also not forget that the bulk of the people coming over the border are not families looking for a better life. Yes, a lot of them are economic migrants, but we have a abundance of military-age men from a variety of countries. These, you know, there's a huge percentage coming over from China, from Haiti, from other places. Well, I don't think the Haitians or the Chinese swam here to get here. This is an organized operation around the world to bring people over to South America, funnel them through the cartels, make the cartels $10,000 to $20,000 per person, and then smuggle them up to the border. Or, you know, I guess they could just use the CBP One app now, check in ahead of time, and then show up for your appointment at the border and be escorted in, sign up for your welfare card and everything else. Well, all that stops. Yep.
And it'll be good. I mean, it's, you know, I know the word that somebody used, well, it's going to be a cleansing. Yeah, it is going to be a cleansing.
Yeah, fine. Let them call it whatever they want.
Right.
I don't really care. At the end of the day, the problem needs solves. We have to put Americans first. And again, Annie and I had this conversation on air a gazillion times. I'm sure she's just as, you know, sick of this as anybody else.
Right.
But there are plenty. I have a lot of sympathy for immigrants that are coming here the legal way, jumping through the hoops and everything else. I have even more sympathy for somebody like Annie, who came here on an asylum visa for legitimate needs.
Yep.
However, I don't have sympathy for what are essentially economic migrants abusing the system, claiming that they need asylum because that's what our State Department and others, these other NGOs, are telling them to do. They are abusing the process. Same with all the ones that the Biden administration is right now releasing on parole. So this is normally used if you're a foreign national, we need you to testify in a trial. We will grant you parole into the country for a set length of time so you can serve your purpose, and then you'll either leave on your own or, you know, they'll escort you back to the airport and make sure you get on your plane and fly home.
Right.
But instead, they're abusing this system. And then we have people with, you know, hearings that are 10 years out. That's insane. They're never going to show up for those.
No. They wouldn't show up if it was a year out. I'm just saying. It's
probably right.
They're gone. I mean, I I don't envy Tom's job trying to go and get all of this done because there's just so many people to round up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and we don't even know how many. We can guesstimate.
Not true numbers. I don't think we know true numbers. I really don't.
No. Well, we also need to get down to the bottom of the, I think it's 330,000 missing children that we took at the border. We then dropped off with, as you know, if you're familiar with Tara Rodas, Aaron Stevenson, some of the other suspendables over there that have worked on this. Moira, man, I just blanked on her last name.
It's all right.
But all the other brave whistleblowers that have come forward from DHS, HHS, Border Patrol, everywhere else. To tell the truth and tell the story. You know, we're handing kids off right now knowingly to MS-13 gang members. Some of these people have made, 10, 15 requests. We continue to hand over children to them, and they're gone. We don't know where they went. They're not telling us. They've just been whisked off into a system of either slavery, sex slavery, abuse, or something much, much worse. So there needs to be real accountability.
I also think that while they're doing all this, if they find out that if you're MS-13 gang member, you go with them.
Yeah. There's no reason not to. There's no reason to keep these
Just
people
get rid
here.
of them all. Yep.
Yeah.
Just clean house now.
Yeah. And I would include that for anybody that has also abused the system where they are at any process of immigrating over here.
Right.
And as long as they're not actually citizens yet, we need to go through and we need to really look at not just this last wave of where it's been an outright invasion, but anyone else that's here illegally, it's overstayed their visa. It's time to reset the whole system. And then we can put something in place that makes sense. Because I do think the process right now is way longer and much more complicated than it needs to be. We should have primarily a merit-based and need-based immigration system that we prioritize job skills that we need and people that will add something to the country. We don't need people for walk up and do mindless jobs. Primarily we should be bringing in the best of the best the world has to offer. And then we should also open up some space for legitimate asylum cases. People like Annie that are, escaping Iran and Sharia law and everything that has brings upon the people there, the essentially nation of slaves. We need to focus on other need-based cases like that, and that should be who's we're actually offering asylum to. And otherwise, it should be need-based, skill-based, and merit-based to immigrate to the United States.
All right, well, we're out of time, Mike. Tell everybody where they can find you.
Well, you can find us right here on Patriot TV. You can also find us over on Rumble and X. You can find me on X at Real Mike Lauber. Thanks again for having me on tonight, and look forward to working with you in the future, John.
You're welcome, buddy. Hey, everybody, thanks for watching tonight. Make sure you go and watch his channel. I've actually got to actually go and sit and watch a couple of them. I really do like him, and he's really good at what he does. So we'll see everybody next week on The Political Nerd.